You're very welcome to episode 135 of Tree Talk. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. After months and months of waiting, we finally have a game to look forward to. Limerick play Tipperary tomorrow in the Gaelic Grounds in the first round of the National Hurling League. There's Camogie to discuss, and also we got a fixture list for the remaining fixtures from 2020 to finish this year. So definitely stay tuned.
Impression the game we get out. Impression the game we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it. No more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, God, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Sheahy, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Finally, we have a game to actually preview, Matt. I suppose before we get into the team or the game itself, we have the team named, we're ready to go. What's it feel like just over 24 hours out from the first game of 2021?
The feeling couldn't be better, Jack. We've been so long waiting. Like it's been a long it's over 4 months now since since we've seen any action in early December. It's heading for 5 months. If you said to us this time 12 months, the type of 12 months that was going to be ahead of us, I think we would all have packed up and gone away. It's been a desperate trying 12 months, but the signs at the moment and all the indicators and all the metrics relating to the pandemic are good. But there's only one way, and it's up to each and every one of us to keep it that way and to keep the progress in suppressing the virus. And there is the carrot there that July we will see spectators back in games, which would be absolutely amazing. So it's a prize worth chasing. Now the vaccination rollout appears to be going very well. The numbers are growing and increasing every day. And people will have protection, but we still shouldn't let our guard down. And I would appeal that if we really want to get back to normal, Jack, that we stick with the public health guidelines for a couple more weeks, because we're getting there and we're getting there fast.
Yeah, we're definitely getting there, but we have the game to look forward to. So I can't see anything happen between here and 5:30 tomorrow to stop it. I suppose John Kiely named his team last night. There's 6 changes from the All-Ireland winning side. We'll just go through there. Nicky Quaid retains his place in goal. In the full-back line, Sean Finn moves to full-back. He's flanked by Aaron Costello and Rich English, which is a blessing to see Rich English back after such a disastrous 2020. He was ready for that Ireland final, didn't get a chance to play, but we have Richie back. In the half-back line, Darren Burns is still at number 5. Kyle Hayes shifts into centre-back in the place of Declan Hannon. Barry Nash moves from cornerback to half-back, where he's probably more comfortable. Material is unchanged. Will Donoghue and Dara Donovan partner up again. Tom Morrissey is retained at wing forward. He is flanked by David Reedy at centre forward, replacing Keane Lynch. And Conor Boylan steps into the shoes of Hurler of the Year, Gerard Hegarty, at the other wing forward. Seamus Flanagan retains his place at full forward, and he has Adrian Breen and David Dempsey either side of him. Among the subs then, you have Barry Hennessy, Jerome Boylan, Peter Casey, Ronan Connolly, Josh Considine, Gerard Hegarty, Keane Lynch, Darren O'Connell, Brian O'Grady, Mark Quinlan, and Brian Ryan. I suppose, Matt, what was your initial reaction to the team news?
My initial reaction, Jack, was that I had been speculating for a couple of days in my own mind as to what the team might be, and I would have to say that I got it spectacularly wrong. Because certainly going into this game, I for one would not have thought that the like of Dan Morrissey, Declan Hannon, Keane Lynch, Gerard Hegarty, Ray Mulcahy, you're talking about all stars here. Aaron Gillan, that they wouldn't be on the starting 15. But I suppose we have spoke at length through this medium about the strength and depth that John Kiely has, and this is going to be a real testament. If you take out big names like he has taken out, and entrusted their positions to 6 players coming in, and when you look at them on an individual basis, there is no doubt whatsoever, every one of the 6 of them that didn't play in the All-Ireland final, they're worth their opportunity. They're entitled to that opportunity. Aaron Costello now is in his 3rd year with the team. And he certainly was a player that wasn't favoured last year when it came to injury, because he was dealing with a niggling injury for quite a lot of the year, and that impeded his progress on the inter-county scene. So I'm glad to see Aaron getting his chance, and we have flagged it for a number of years now that Aaron Costello is somebody that is arguably one of the best defenders in the Limerick Championship for a couple of years. Before he finally made the step up, and I think he's quite capable of making the step up. If you recall back when Kilmallock won the Munster Club Championship in 2014, how outstanding he was at that step up, even to the Munster Club Championship and the All Ireland Championship. He was one of their key players. So I don't see any problem there. Sean Finn at fullback. Sean has a bit of experience playing at fullback. He has played there a couple of occasions before, so it's nothing new to him. What can you say about Richie English? 2018 All-Star, possibly a 2020 All-Star, were it not for that cruel injury that curtailed his activities last year. So look, I wouldn't have any. I don't have any worries about the full back line. Of course, we overlooked to mention Nicky Quaid, but I suppose enough to say Nicky Quaid is Nicky Quaid.
Yeah, of course. And one thing that stood out for me, I suppose, just moving on from that full back line, was Kyle Hayes at centre back. And I suppose under 21s in 17, Kyle Hayes was my hurler of the year. Aaron Gillan got it, and no complaints there. But Kyle was exceptional at number 6. How do you see him translating into centre back? Because it's such a different position to wing back, even though they're right beside each other on the field.
Yeah, I can see him being quite comfortable there. For, as you said, in 2017, he had previous experience of it at minor level, and he had previous experience also with Kildimo Palace-Kenry. And strange to say, when he was busting on the team and on the scene, and when we were talking about the great potential that he had, we were speaking about him as a centre back. And now is his opportunity. And the half back line at senior level is no longer a strange environment for him, because he made a spectacular transition to the half back line last year at wing back. So he's just moving in. I think Kyle Hayes will be quite comfortable at centre half back.
Yeah, I definitely think he will be comfortable. But you're probably losing a bit of his kind of athleticism. Is Barry Nash the player to replace him then? It's just a long-term thing for Kyle in the centre?
Yeah, well, I was speculating that possibly in my own mind that Barry Nash would be at left half back. It's one of the ones that I got right. But
Lost Matt there for a second. I'm sure he'll be back with us. But in case you missed it, we were just talking about the Limerick team to play Tipperary. John Kiely named it last night. I suppose the big thing that we were just talking about there is Kyle Hayes is named at centre back. He fills in for Declan Hannon, who drops out of the side. And Richie English makes his long-awaited return. I suppose Richie was injured last year against Galway in the league, and we didn't see him for several of the year. You're back, Matt. I was just saying what we were talking about. You kind of cut out there just talking about Barry Nash coming in at wing back.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I got right in my own head. But having said that, I felt that he might displace Kyle Hayes, who would be possibly moving back up into the forwards, and that there'd be a rejig around there. You know, I was of the opinion that John Kiley would probably go with most of the All-Ireland final team, but it isn't. But we've seen what Barry Nash can do. Like, we saw what Barry Nash could do in the early stages of last year. We saw what he could do at left half back in the Munster League. We saw what he could do in the early stages of the National League last year at left half back, when he was one of Limerick's outstanding performers. And, like, you know, when Richie English wasn't available for the championship and for the league final, we did speculate that he probably would make the transition back to cornerback. When there was doubts about the fitness of Aaron Costello, who you will recall was not fully fit coming up to the league final last year. So I have no worries whatsoever about Barry Nash.
Yeah, and just one more thing on the team. There's an Apirshig trio come into the forward line. David Reedy comes in as well. We've probably seen more David Reedy in recent years. But I'm just interested to see the likes of Conor Boyle and Dave Dempsey and Adrian Breen. There needs to be putting pressure on the players in the forward line. Like, they come in for Garrod Hegarty, Graham Mulcahy, Aaron Galland. There's not bigger boots to fill, really. But I suppose David Dempsey was a player last year that injury, you could have seen him in the starting 15. Conor Boylan won another Fitzgibbon last year, was excellent for UCC in the Cork Championship. I saw him a couple of times. And Adrian Breen is so consistent. Are they kind of three that you would earmark to take over if anyone got injured, or could they put possible pressure on the lads in the up there already?
Yeah, but the three that you've mentioned, the three that are coming in now, are typical of the strength of the Limerick squad. Like, you're right about David Dempsey. Like, David Dempsey had an incredible year last year. In his appearances with Limerick and his cameo appearances with Limerick, and with Apirshig, he had an absolutely smashing year. He was really, really on the top of his form, and he had fulfilled the promise that he had shown as a minor and more last year. Were it not for that unfortunate injury that dogged him in the concluding stages of the All-Ireland series, I have no doubt that he would have played a part in possibly the All-Ireland semi-final and the All-Ireland final. Now, Aidan Breen came in the All-Ireland final, and anytime he has come in, or indeed for that matter, anytime he has started, he has never let the side down. And the same goes for Conor Boylan. And you're right, Conor Boylan had a great year with UCC and had a great year with UCC in the Cork Championship. So, look, all three have well-known and well-documented credentials, and I'm absolutely delighted to see him getting that opportunity. And I have no fears for any of these, just as I don't have any fears for David Reedy either.
Yeah, and Kieran Carey was talking last night, and he was kind of just saying that John Kiley's going to use the league as a dress rehearsal, and it's an opportunity for these players. And outside the starting 15, you have the likes of Peter Casey, who, in my opinion, gets into every team in Ireland. Josh Considine, I think Mark Quinlan is a fantastic player. Everyone on the bench there really deserves their chance. And then you've obviously Garrod Hegarty and Keane Lynch as well. But outside of that, we got word from John Kiley during the week that we have 4 new faces in the Limerick setup, and I suppose it would be a miss for us not to go through them.
Before we go on to that, Jack, we haven't mentioned Ronan Connolly at all. There's a huge prospect.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. We were talking during the week, myself and yourself, and we kind of earmarked Ronan Connolly as well as a number of players. But as you said, Ronan Connolly is definitely one for the future, and it could be a case of the future is now for Ronan.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's another guy now that were he called in or were he to step in, I'd have very few fears about Ronan Connolly. We saw the type of performances he turned in for a day last year in the championship. And 2 years ago, we saw the performance he put on in Cork for Limerick under 20s. Probably the best man on the field, were it not for the goal scoring exploits of O'Regan that night. He was for Cork. He was certainly a contender for man in the match. Certainly Limerick's best player, in my view, arguably the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, but that's just the case with the Limerick team. Really, there is no one below standard in this Limerick setup. They're all up to scratch, and we'll get on to the new faces now, and their recruitment line is just coming and producing every year. And there was 4 players named during the week. You've Colin Cochran, Colin Cochran, Brown, Thomas Hayes Doon, and Barry Murphy makes his return to the setup. I suppose it would be remiss of us not to talk about each of them individually, and you don't want to put too much pressure on younger players. We'll start with Cathal O'Neill, and the sky is the limit for Cathal. I saw him for minors, 2 years at Limerick minors. He won a Munster Championship. He got 2 All-Stars. He got an All-Star minor at only 16 years of age. And he was fantastic against Cork last year in the under-20s. We won't see him this weekend, but there's definitely a possibility that we'll see him this summer.
There is a possibility, and his inclusion in the panel is a very, very welcome development. And I suppose he's a classical example of how well the academy system is working, and I suppose it's a testimony also as to how well the conveyor belt or the transition of younger players onto the senior squad is happening and it is taking place. Like, he's a hugely exciting player, and absolutely delighted to see him on it. And like, we should have no worries. And John Kiley spoke highly early in the week about how these lads, these 4 lads, had settled in. And of course, he also during the course of the conversation, he paid tribute to the existing squad at the way they welcomed the new players on board and helped them to settle in, which is very, very, very good to see. But Cathal O'Neill, the transition he had to make was from minor to under 20. And I suppose there's only one word that can describe how he did that, and that was spectacularly, because he was excellent in the Munster under 20 championship last year, and he's going to have 2 more years eligible for that level, which is mind-boggling. But the one thing, and I suppose at this point in time in his career, it's a difficult time for him to come into the senior squad. Not because of the competition or anything, but he's trying to find his feet under the table in the senior squad, and at the same time balance it with doing his leaving certificate, which is a huge challenge. But if there was to be a good mentor, guiding him through that, it has to be John Kiley, like who is a great educationalist as well as being a great team manager. So, like, he's going to be in safe hands. But like, there isn't a doubt on earth that Cathal O'Neill is certainly he has a huge potential, and he has a huge future in front of him.
Yeah, and another player that was called up with a huge future is Colin Cochran, another lad who had his first year on 20s last year, is doing the leaving cert as well. And I suppose Colin, even though he was a 2-year minor at Limerick and won a Munster Championship, he probably came under the radar a bit with Cathal O'Neill taking all the plaudits. But his performances for Brown last year in the Senior Championship were incredible. And it just goes to show that when Brown were facing the Pearse League, that the Pearse League boys, even though nearly all of them are inter-county players, the forwards, would have been delighted to see Colin Cochran missed out through injury. He's a player that just gets better and better every year, and another player with huge potential.
Yeah, sure. Look, the narrative going into the county quarter final last year was how big a loss Colin Cochran was to Brown, because he was missing that county quarter final. And like, I think that says it all, like, that you're going into a county senior quarter final of the All-Ireland champions county, and a 17-year-old is deemed to be a huge loss. I think that speaks volumes. I saw him with in the first round against Blackrock, and I was just blown away by him. I think you saw it the same evening, possibly. Were you on camera the same evening, Jack? And like, it just wasn't a one-off. It just wasn't a dream debut. Like, he built on it, and subsequently was part of the Barry Brown team now that has put back-to-back Premier minor championships together, which is very, very good for the club, for Barry Brown, and testimony to the great work that's been done out in Barry Brown. And like Cathal O'Neill, he's trying to do the balancing act at the moment, but I have no doubt come the end of June, which is only 7 weeks away, like that the leaving certificate, they will have put it behind them, and you know, I see a huge future for Colin Cochran, no doubt whatsoever, and you know, these are two very, very strong lads for their age, two very, very strong men. They're in the physicality stakes, they're not going to be lost from day one. So I have no worries at all about them.
Yeah, and just the last word on Colin Cochran, I don't want to put too much pressure on young lad, but one of the boys asked me the other day about him. He hadn't seen him play, and I said the closest thing you could describe him to was kind of like Kyle Hayes. So if we have another Kyle Hayes amongst the team, we won't complain for a second. Another fella that got called up was Thomas Hayes from Doon. I suppose we probably haven't heard from Thomas Hayes for a while in a county setup. He was part of that 2016 minor team that reached All-Ireland final that had Kyle Hayes and Conor Boylan and a few more. But Thomas Hayes, anyone that has seen the club championship and seen him for Doon in recent years will know the standard he's in hurling at. I've been very lucky to see a lot of Doon's games. And at fullback, there was probably not a better fullback in the championship that contained the likes of Mike Casey. So it's a real testament to Thomas that his efforts for the club haven't gone unnoticed. And even when the world was crumbling around him, when Doon were losing heavily in the Limerick final last year against the Fairshake, he stood up strong, and going up against the likes of Peter Casey and the likes of Aaron Gillan week in, week out in the Limerick Championship will definitely do his confidence a world of good. And as he goes into the senior setup, he's definitely capable of it. And as a fullback option, it's probably one place Limerick are lacking for real out-and-out fullbacks.
Yeah, I agree. I suppose if you could say that there's a wild card addition to the squad, it would be Thomas Hayes, but he's there on merit. And another thing that, you know, is good about his inclusion is that, you know, we tend to look at the academy, those that are playing at minor and starting at minor and under 21 level or under 20 level, and that's the pathway to the senior squad. Now, as is Thomas Hayes' case, like Thomas Hayes took a different path in that was his sterling performance and the consistency of his performances for Doon. So like that holds out the hope for any club player out there. Go out, do it with your club, do it on a consistent basis, and you will be noticed. So like Thomas Hayes is certainly there on merit. Like he is one of the reasons that Doon have been knocking around at the county championship and winning a county title so tantalizingly close. In the I know they got a heavy defeat last year, you know, but they got to the final last year, in my opinion, slightly against the odds for the simple reason that they were dogged with injury. In that, you know, any club cannot afford to lose the like of Richie English for the entire championship. And if that wasn't bad enough, like Darragh O'Donovan picked up an injury and missed games. So, like, you know, it was a great performance on their part to get to the county final. But the county final and beating the Fairshake just proved the bridge too far. But, you know, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, at the risk of being repetitive. Is there any shame in being beaten by that Fairshake team? I don't think there is.
No,
a team for the ages.
They're definitely a team for the ages, but that Doon team are coming strong. And look, we'll talk about Doon later on in the year when we get to the club championship, but they have some serious options. Another one they have is Barry Murphy, and he's back in the setup after a year away. And you know what you're getting with Barry Murphy. He's an excellent forward. I was only saying to you the other day that in 2018, when Limerick finally got out of Division 1B or Division 2, or whatever it was called at the time, that Barry Murphy was central to that. And Graham Mulcahy is called up for the Munch Championship because you can't leave Graham Mulcahy out. But it just shows how close Barry Murphy was in 2018. And he won't need any introducing. He could slot in any week and you wouldn't bat an eyelid. He's a top quality player. And against Tip in the first round in 2018, when Limerick needed that goal, Barry Murphy pops up and gets it with a bat into the net. And if Limerick don't beat Tipperary in the first round, it's highly likely that they don't go on and win All Ireland. So Barry Murphy is a brilliant addition to the side, and it's great to see him back.
It's fantastic to see Barry back, and again, like he has found his way back again, if you like, through the club route, because he certainly, his performances for Doon, he was making it very, very difficult to be overlooked, because like he was in sparkling form for Doon. And of course, you talk about that crucial goal against Tipperary, and it was spectacularly taken. And the thing is that, you know, he gives you another option, in that he is quite an accomplished free taker, a very, very good free taker. So now, all right, I know we have Adam Gillan, I know we have Tom Morrissey, but that's another, you know, it's another option in that department, which is crucial. And with the advantage rule going, for the most part in the league, we're going to be confronted with more frees, which means that there's going to be greater importance and greater pressure, I suppose, on the shoulder of free takers.
Yeah, definitely. And just on that point there about more frees and sin bins and stuff, we were going to do a little chat about that, but we said we'd leave it until controversy reigns, and hopefully it's an issue that we'll never have to go to. Hopefully it won't be a case like the VAR in the Premier League, that every week it's the main focus. So hopefully the refs can bat on the head straight away, and it can make the game even better if at all possible. But I suppose going back to the game itself.
But Jack, now, it's unfair. I think it's unfair to put the pressure on the referees. Like, all the referees can do is implement the diktats that are being handed from Croke Park. Now, we saw the video that was going around with the explanatory piece on the new rules and advantage rule. Now, if there's not going to be an advantage rule, there has to be more frees. So there's going to be greater importance. Now, the sin bin. Like, I can see a lot of controversy about the sin bin, and it will be no fault of the referees. You know, John Kiley made the point in the week, suppose a long clearance out of defence, referees on the half of the field where the ball is coming out from, it drops in inside the 20-metre line, and an infringement or an infraction, as they like to call it, occurs there. How does the referee make a decision from 40 or 50 yards?
Yeah,
you see, and the hurlers on the ditch, you know, those that are up in the ditch shouting, and the first thing they'll say, "Oh, so the referee isn't up with the play at all," you know.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, so if you're waiting, Jack, as you said, that we see controversy about the change in the rules, I suspect you won't be waiting too long.
Well, hopefully I'll be proved wrong in that regard. But just on the sin bin
thing, I hope you're wrong, but I don't think you will be.
For anyone that wants a real in-depth insight into it, on the Examiner podcast, I think it was last week or even a fortnight ago, Anthony Daly had Fergal Horgan on, the All-Ireland referee from 2020 and 2017, and he spoke brilliantly about it. And between Daly and TJ Ryan and Mark Landers, they question him on every possible thing, and he answers every question brilliantly, eloquently. So for anyone that wants real in-depth insight into that, it was something I listened to through and through. I probably listened to twice at this stage. It was excellent. But anyways, outside, and I know the pressure that's on refs, and I don't want to put any more pressure on them. We just want to see the game play and the game flow, and hopefully that's what we'll get on Saturday evening at the Gaelic Grounds. On Saturday,
and that's what the referees. And I've been speaking to a referee in the last 48 hours, you know, and is very, very, very worried about the implementation of these rules at this point, you know, and the advantage rule and this sin bin business and all that sort of stuff, you know.
I know, but look, time will tell in that regard. On Saturday, Matt,
I just shudder to think in the days of Tipperary and Hell's Kitchen, about the sin bin, you know. Looking back in the days, I suppose, you know, but I don't know.
We don't know.
We will be talking about controversy on this sooner rather than later.
You sound like a man that's looking for controversy, but we'll leave that behind now.
I certainly am not, but I don't see it as being avoidable, Jack.
Yeah, hopefully not. In the Gaelic Grounds tomorrow, Matt, who is it a bigger game for? Obviously, Limerick are All-Ireland champions, league champions, Munster champions. They have a huge target in their back. And when you are a champion, all you want to do is retain. But on the flip side, Tipperary were All-Ireland champions in 2019 and had a really below par 2020. Like, obviously, both sides will want to go out and win this game. But with a truncated season, only 8 weeks to the Munster Championship, which side will be fired up more, we'll say, tomorrow night?
I think it will probably be Tipperary. You know, they must be longing for a win over Limerick at this stage. Limerick were 2018 and 2020 champions. Tipperary were 2019 champions. But like you must remember that Limerick thumped Tipperary in the Munster final in 2019. Like, they've beaten Tipperary in the last 3 meetings in the championship. 2018, when Barry Murphy got the goal. 2019, and again in the monsoon conditions down in Cork in the Munster semi-final last year. So, like, you know, Tipperary pride will drive them to be up for it. We beat them in the corresponding game in the league last year on their own patch in Thurles. And so I think it's really huge. It's more important for Tipperary. And you know, I honestly believe that a rebuild of Tipperary probably starts here. Now, they have made minimal changes to their panel, insofar as that they've brought in Owen Connolly, who's won 20 an under 21 and an under 20 All-Ireland medal. They've brought in Alan Tynan from Munster Rugby. Well, there was previously with Munster Rugby. Interesting to see him make the transition from rugby back to hurling, just like we were watching with interest how Desi Hutchinson in Waterford would make the transition from rugby back to hurling, and you'd have to say very well, thank you very much. He did very well. But Tipperary, I thought last year that the difference between Tipperary in 2019 and 2020 was that the big players in Tipperary didn't come anywhere near reaching their top form last year. And I'm talking about Padraig Maher, to a lesser extent Brendan Maher, even though he's entitled to a bit of slack insofar as the Boris Lee were involved in the club championship right up to the All-Ireland final. And then you had the issues with the Bonner being injured and being without him and this sort of a thing. Noel McGrath, who hurled the year in 2019, certainly never came near it in 2020, except in patches. Seamus Callanan, like a goal a game, Callanan in 2019, like it wasn't repeated. So these are the big names, and these are the names that have big names. They're big hurling miles in the clock, and have made a huge contribution, not just to Tipperary, but to the game of hurling. And certainly, Tipperary would, from a pool and a talent point of view, must be in a very, very good position. 2018 Ireland under 21 champions, 2019 under 20 champions. So that there must be a huge pool of players there. And the trick now is, and it'll be very, very interesting to see the Tipperary line out. And I'm hearing that there's a possibility that Seamus Callanan will miss out on this game. How many of these up and coming players that Liam Sheedy is prepared to use, and like it's coming to the stage now where the players that I mentioned, who have been the leaders on the team, Liam Sheedy has got to find leaders, and they've got to step up to the plate. And you're talking about the Jason Fords of this world, the Brian McGraths of this world, Ronan Maher, Paddy Cadell, Mark Kehoe, Jake Morris. These are the new guys on the block. But those guys that have been there a few years, need to help them along. The fellas like John McGrath, and as I said, Jason Ford, Ronan Marr. These are going to be the new leaders of Tipperary, whether we like it or not, whether it's in 2021, it's certainly going to be in the next year or two. So, like, there's a certain element, I suppose, having seen the Tipperary panel, it's not totally correct to say that they're in transition, but they're certainly heading into transition, and there's an element of transition going on in Tipperary. So I think it's a huge game for them. It's a much bigger game for them than Limerick, and like they haven't won the league since what, 15 or 16 years, or 13 years, I think, isn't it? 2008, was it?
Yeah, they
when Owen Kelly led them to win it. Yeah, I think, so like, what better way like to build a new side and make the changes or apply the surgery that was obviously needed last year than use a sharp league campaign like this, because like it's going to be straight into the championship.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a question now, and I suppose you went into the crystal ball for the Limerick team during the week, and it was a bit foggy. But if I was to ask you about the Tipperary team, these lads we mentioned, like the Cannons, the Matters, the McGraths, is it a case of you just rest them for the league and ask them to do 6 or 7 weeks in a row, hopefully in All Ireland Championship, or do you ask them to go to the well for 12, 13 weeks and see can they give it one final year, or what would your thinking be on it?
I would think it would be the former option that you mentioned.
That the young lad.
I think if the likes of the Noel McGraths, the Patrick Marsh, Seamus Cannons, I would imagine that they possibly will be used sparingly in the league, on the hope that and having one good real go at the championship.
And in a year like this, where we have 5 weeks of league, and then probably it'll be a fortnight or 3 weeks for Limerick and Tip because they're through the semi-final, is that a dangerous thing to do, to maybe sacrifice the league in a way to blood players, or do you need the league to build momentum because there isn't going to be much of a break between the spring competition and the summer competition?
I think more than ever you need the league to build momentum at this stage. Because heretofore you'll be finishing the league at the end of April, and you possibly wouldn't be into the championship until June, the earliest. What am I talking about? You'll be finishing it towards the end of March, and you wouldn't be going in. You wouldn't be going into the June, like there was a bigger lapse altogether, or a bigger gap altogether. I honestly think the league has to be used to build a certain element of momentum. But having said that, as I said, if people with a lot of hurling mileage on the clock, they will have to be used sparingly in the league, because you look at the championship from a Limerick and a Tipperary perspective. Win 4 games, you're All Ireland champions. Once the semi-final, final All Ireland semi-final, and a final. The pathway is short. The time is short.
It is definitely short, but there is, as you said, a case for momentum to be building into that. I suppose coming down to at the final whistle tomorrow, who do you see as the winners and why?
I think Limerick will just about shade it.
Just about.
Yeah, I think they will, and that's in the absence of seeing the Tipperary team. I think Limerick will just about shade it. I think it'll be a very, very tight game, and the lads that John Kiley has brought in, they will be playing for places. No doubt at all about it. You have for instance, look at the incentive that's there for Barry Nash. Like Richie English is getting his jersey first day out. He has to try and nail down a place, So, and it's going to strengthen the competition for places on the Limerick squad. And like these guys, as we have seen, they have been knocking at the door, and now is their chance to put further pressure on those that have the jerseys.
Yeah, there's definitely huge pressure coming in from the bench. I think it's one thing that Limerick have that other teams don't have, is that pressure coming from the bench and even from the extended squad. I think the training games, if they're permitted, are as good as any game against any county for Limerick. But that's tomorrow's game, Limerick Tipperary, LIT Gaelic Grounds at 5:30, Saturday, May 8th. It's on RTE. It's also on Air Sport. That's the only game for this week that we'll be talking about. Next week, obviously, the hurlers against Galway, the footballers against Tip, the junior camogie side are against Meath. And I suppose we'll talk about the camogie for a minute, Matt, because once again, it's making headlines and it's not for the reasons you want. Last year, it was the junior teams being pulled at the last hour. This year, it's going against the split season when it's working for everyone else. And just to give a bit of clarity for people, they're wanting to play the league starting next week at the juniors and the seniors in action the following week. Then they want to go back to the club championship for the summertime and then return to your inter-county teams for a championship in the winter. And the players don't agree with it, Matt. And it's a really messy situation in the build-up, having waited so long for games that we mightn't even have games now.
Yeah, we may not have a league anyway, Jack. And you know, I wonder. We have reached this position. Like we had the situation of the junior championship being pulled at being partly pulled at the last minute last year because it was pulled for the counties that had second teams. Those that had just one team, it went ahead. And I don't know how you could make that difference, but they did anyway. And the minor championship was also pulled. And like that, there was the unseemly row that took place in the aftermath of those two incidents, and you'd wonder what learning, if any, was taken from it. I probably think none. Like the roadmap that the Camogie Association published last year. You're right. Play the league, back to the club championship, and back to the inter-county championship. I just wonder why the split season has been embraced and is good enough for hurling, football, and ladies football, and it's not good enough for the Camogie Association. Now, when they outlined their blueprint for the championship last year, the Camogie Association issued a statement, and it gave the reasons why player welfare and all that sort of thing, and like they were laudable reasons. But I understand that from as far back as the 2nd of April. There was an understanding with the GPA that the season would probably be run on the basis of the split season, like the other codes. Now, when this came out, a poll of the players, 84% of them have said that they will not participate in the league unless the whole fixture strategy for the year reverts back to the split season. In other words, you play the league, you play the championship, and then you go into your club championship like the other codes. So that's where it's resting at the moment. But the Camogie Association have taken a week to poll their different units as to how they feel about this. So we should know what the outcome of that is by Saturday. By Sunday or Monday. But like the hope is that common sense will prevail, and that we're going to revert back to the split season situation, and that the players will be back on board. Like it's so difficult at this point, as we speak, at this remove, for both management, managers, their management teams, their squads. They're preparing. They're preparing for what? Like, if we're to prepare, if the original proposal is to prevail, and the players refuse to play in the league, county teams are preparing for a championship that may not take place next October.
Yeah, it's just a very messy situation. And I suppose we talk about the Limerick senior hurlers, and it's only 4 months removed since they've played. But when you go to the Camogie team, it's almost a year since they were in action. Like they were out towards the end of last summer. It's a long time. And I was walking around Duell the other night, and it was great to see the Camogie or the junior and senior side training together. These girls have obviously waited an awful long time to get back, and they don't know what they're playing for now, as you rightly said. But does it come back to the bigger issue of having the hurling, football, ladies football, and Camogie under the one banner and everyone doing the same thing essentially?
It is, of course, you know, and there has been a memorandum of agreement signed for that for a couple of years, and like you know, things like this. Hopefully, you know, if there is to be a good fallout from the like of this, is that it will hasten the day when all that will come about, because like we can see the ladies football striding ahead now of Camogie, 55,000 at the All Ireland football final. Ladies football final, 50,000 last year, you know, and see the growth of football. So there's no reason why Camogie can't replicate that, or certainly close the gap now, which has become. And you must remember that ladies football on an organised basis is in being less than 40 years. Like, but you know, it has the biggest growth in this country at the moment, you know, and it's been driven, you know, and a fantastic job being done in driving the sport. And I suppose, Jack, you'd have to say to a certain degree that they have a good product. Ladies football is a very, very, very enjoyable game. They have a good product, and you know, they're putting it out there and they're cashing in on it. And like you can see the emergence of new ladies football clubs with the new one in Chrome in the last 12 months. You know, they're cropping up. The game is spreading. So like I cannot, you know, and plus the fact that since this thing happened with the Camogie, and it might probably only a coincidence, but like they've issued a firm statement like that. They're starting that championship in July.
Yeah, there's no reason that the Camogie can't follow in the footsteps that the ladies football are doing, and also the men's game. But when you're talking about a good product like ladies football is very enjoyable, so is the Camogie, and all you want to see is these players getting rewards for the effort they're putting in. And if they've voted that they want to play whenever they want to play, let them play then, because at the end of the day, the players are the most important. But as I said, we just have to remain hopeful that common sense will prevail.
It's such. I don't know. Look, the Camogie Association are probably well intentioned. If you read the reasons that they gave, they're laudable, but they just don't tally with what the players want. And
Yeah.
This is not player power I'm talking about. It's the players crying out for reason to prevail.
Yeah, it's so far removed from player power, but it's just they're the ones that should be listened to. And as I said, hopefully this time next week we'll be able to look forward to the junior team going out against Meath. But again, time will tell.
If anybody is mistaken, they have a very good product as well. You know?
Oh yeah.
And we want to see what we want to see is we want to see more of it.
Yeah, and after such a long wait, that's all you want to see.
We're going to see less in 2021 anyway, if there's no league.
Yeah. It's just we want to see games, especially every year you want to see games, but after such a long wait, games is what you want to see. But moving on from the Camogie, we are going to get games from last year, which is a brilliant revelation really from Limerick GA. And you've spoken at length about how well they did last year to get so many competitions run off. And three of the competitions that we got towards the end, didn't quite get to the end, was the Junior A Hurling Championship, the Premier Minor Football Championship, and the Minor A Football Championship. And we got an email during the week like that these games are going to go ahead, and it's excellent from Limerick GA to fit in these games with such a tight schedule. So like we have club games to look forward to while in June, which isn't that far away really with the way this year is going. So just run them through them. The Woodlands House Hotel County Junior A Hurling Championship semi-finals. They'll be both played on the 7th of June. Croke Kilfinney are playing Clahon in Kilmallock that evening, and Drumcolor Broadford are playing Patrickswell in McNeville Park at 7 o'clock, an hour after their game. And then the winners will play in a final the following week in the Gaelic Grounds. So it's way overdue but we have the chance to see the junior A teams finish, and it's brilliant for those teams involved that they're actually going to get a chance to play, because the junior A hurling championship is a brilliant competition.
A brilliant competition. Now it was in its inaugural year, being played on an all county basis, and like there were some fantastic games. When I reflect on the 2020 Junior A Championship, I really are so disappointed that it was behind closed doors, because I would think that that some of the games that were in there, by all accounts, they were excellent exhibitions of hurling. And like, we're down to 4. Croke Kilfinney, whose presence in the semi-final doesn't surprise me. I had seen him in 2019, and I was hugely impressed with him. And I thought at that particular time that 2019 was probably or slightly a year too soon for him. And that is how things have transpired. And they're playing Claghon. How wonderful it is to see Claghon back, hopefully going back up the levels, because like they're the fallen giants. Like, it's not too long ago since Claghon were doing a Limerick Senior Championship double. Was it as recently as 86, if I'm correct? I think it was. And like, they've already won the intermediate football, and possibly, it came under the radar a small bit in it. Now, they might have been knocking at the door for a couple of years, but they got over the line last year. And the hurlers, I think, are going much the same path, a small bit under the radar, and like, but whatever way it is, it's marvelous to see that there's a revival, that the decline has been arrested in Claghon, and that it is onwards and upwards. Same for Drumbradford. Drumbradford were relegated, was it 2 years ago? So like, it's great for them. Like, great, when we think of Drumbradford in the present climate, we always think of the big ball code and what they have done for football. But there's a massive tradition of hurling in Drumbradford. Of being a hurling bastion, and they will no doubt be hoping to get back up again. And then Patrickswell, fair credit to Patrickswell, but this is a sign of Patrickswell, the work that's been done in Patrickswell at underage level, like Na Piarsaigh, that they can put out a second team that can compete so successfully, and are gone into the semi-finals. In the quarterfinals, they defeated Castletown Ballygran, who were beaten in the county final last year. So, like, their claim to fame, or their claim to the title, is something that can be taken lightly. And if you look down through it, like the two football fixtures that you have flagged, your Father Casey's and Newcastle West, they'll be playing in Tournafull on the 25th of June in the final, and in the Premier final. And I suppose this is a meeting of the two sides, Jack, in fairness, that have dominated this competition for the last number of years. Yeah. And probably if you're to look at it, the outcome or the benefit of it, it would look as if Newcastle West have benefited slightly better than Father Casey's, in that more of the players that were successful at underage level seem to have made the transition at Newcastle West than they have at Father Casey's. But there are signs that Father Casey's are getting there. Like they tried 4 or 5 players in the senior championship last year. I didn't think any of them were out of place. They're the type of players that could be in for a long innings in the senior squad. So as I said, these two clubs have dominated it. And then in the A final, which is on also on the same night in Bruff, like you have Adair, like we all know about a day of football at this stage. Is there any doubt whatsoever about it? 3 senior titles in 4 years, and this is a spin-off of it. And they've already won a minor hurling, haven't they? So, and they'll play Cracora South Liberties, whom I'm sure will feature one Cathal O'Neill probably if he's so inclined for the big ball code. So very, 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 very interesting. But what's most important of all is the fact that we have games coming back. We have games to look forward to. Full credit again to Limerick GAA. And sometimes I get knocked for saying it in this medium, but Limerick GAA did a fantastic job 2018 in the way that in the aftermath of the All-Ireland final that and Limerick winning, that they rearranged their fixtures, got them finished, and got their competitions finished in time for the Munster Club Championship. Full credit to Limerick GAA in 2020 for the manner in which they used the 11 weeks at their disposal to maximise the number of games that they got played. Full credit to them. Is it 13? Is it 11 or 13 county finals around the country are unfinished?
I'd be going towards more than that, at least 13.
I'm talking about senior finals, Jack.
Oh, between both codes, there probably is that much, if not more, I'd say, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think it's 13 that is unfinished. Now, those counties. Now, Cork is a huge county, as we know. They're one of the counties. But there are counties that are much the same as Limerick in terms of numbers and in terms of clubs, and some with less. They had the same 11 weeks that Limerick had.
No, you can commend the Limerick County Board for the work they've done enough to get all these games played. And look, teams are back training on Monday if they so choose. Teams are allowed training pods of 15, which is great to see. There's games to look forward to for a lot of teams. Limerick are back in action tomorrow night. There seems to be kind of a tide turning here towards the GAA. Next week we'll be able to look back in the game for the first time this year. We'll have loads of games to look forward to. So thanks a million for input.
Jack, I'm not one bit biased here, and I'll apologise to nobody for saying it, Jack. But the GAA's response, particularly in Limerick, who led the way to the COVID pandemic, has been absolutely fantastic. The way that they responded, the way that they approached it, the way that they organised and helped and put their shoulder to the wheel in the darkest hours of the pandemic. Full marks to the GAA.
Yeah, and we'll leave it on a note like that. They've been exemplary, and it's brilliant to see. And we'll be back next week to talk about a game and to look forward to loads more games. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Jack.
The impression the game you get out of it, what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Sheahy, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.